What's up, strongest men, women, and children from blocks all around the world? I am my block's strongest man, still battling the world situation over here. And since World's Strongest Man Day 3 is about to begin today, I thought I'd give you a little bit of content to hold you over for the first few minutes while they bring all the guys out and get going on the wrecking ball hole today. Let's talk about what happened in Day 2 and who, according to the research data, overachieved and who underachieved on Day 2 at World's Strongest Man 2022. So we're going to talk about a lot of guys. The current World's Strongest Man, Tom Stoltman, four-time World's Strongest Man, Brian Shaw, one-time World's Strongest Man, Martins Licis, and a bunch of other guys to talk about how well they did, either above or below expectations. So let's have a look. Starting off with Group 1 in the car walk, we had Tom Stoltman winning the car walk. So Tom continues to win everything at World's Strongest Man 2022, performing slightly above expectation. I had him coming away with 5 points. He actually won the event. And I have some people telling me, like, Tom's great on lock for reps. He's great on car walk. Like, how did you not have him winning? Well, the data supported him being almost at the very top. So it's not, a big deficit. And number two, like, I think he's had quite a meteoric sort of rise lately. So in car walk, for example, I'm not sharing the screen, but if I go over and look at my block strongest algorithm in 2021, he had an 85.5 rating in car walk, which is really, really high. The 2 times he did it put together, he has a 53 rating, which is really mediocre. So Tom is a special case because he's coming up a lot very recently in terms of car walk prowess. So it makes it difficult when you're trying to use an algorithm that applies to everybody, and some guys are kind of more on the upswing and some aren't. But there you go. Kevin Ferris had predicted to come away with 2 points, did a lot better, 4 points there. So that's what the green area is. The data had suggested Gabriel Pena would come away with 3 points. He came away with 5. So Gabriel Pena, I feel like, continues to do better than expectations on almost every event here. He's really come to play this year and is really trying to put himself in a good position. Research said Ivar Smockstellis was very highly rated in car walk, which is right here, 68.19. Came away with only 3 points, not the 6 that the data would have suggested. Again, if you look at Tom's most recent car walk, his rating blows this one away, which explains why Tom would have won. Andy Black, the late addition to take the place of the injured Pao Dwyer. Data had suggested he would come last in the car walk. Instead, he got 2 points, so did slightly better there, which is the green one that you see. And Manuel Angulo did, unfortunately, considerably worse in the car walk. He did a car walk at OSG Masters last year, so data kind of suggested him being a little bit used to this apparatus, but did not pan out for him. The weight may have been very different from the Masters of last year, and 1 point for him instead of 4. Moving on down in the car walk, Group 2, you had Mitchell Hooper, who continues his winning ways. Car walk, much like the Super Yoke, which Mitchell Hooper continues to say is his best event. The data had suggested that he would win this event, and he did. So 6 points for him. Data had suggested 3 points for Bobby Thompson. He came away a little better than that, so overperformed by a bit, taking away 4 points. Brian Shaw underperformed on the car walk, so data suggested he come away with 4 points here. He came away with 2, so that's the red area you see here. And at this point, Brian's sort of still floundering a bit in terms of having himself in good position for Stoneoff, but you'll see that changes a bit later on with other events. Gabriel Pena, unfortunately, predicted to have 1 point based on the data, and the car walk did have 1 point. But if you watched his Instagram live, he added a lot of really great perspective around this. A knee injury that he had some time back, which he had kind of gotten over back in January, resurfaced at the worst time here, worst possible time. And he still was able to do a much better job with his car walk than he had done in the past. So he's kind of really proud of himself fighting through the pain and the injury, but it does sort of bleed over into the log press for reps, which we'll talk about momentarily. We then have Mark Felix, who went away to get 5 points in the car walk. So predicted to get 2 points, but Mark Felix also did car walk in the Masters OSG last year. So apparently that did carry over for him, unlike Manuel Angulo. So he outperformed expectations by quite a bit, as you can see here. And Konstantin Janasha, who the data had suggested would come away in second place with 5 points, here comes away with 3 points. So Konstantin continues to perform a bit lower than what we had expected in several different events. Again, hearing rumors about a leg injury or at least bothering him. So that may be a big contributing factor there. Group 3, data had suggested Alexei Novikov would get 5 points in the car walk. He came away with 4, so slightly less there. And then the data seemed to be, well, the athletes seemed to perform right to the data with Adam Bishop, Trey Mitchell, and Rob Kearney. Adam expected to get 2 points, Trey 3, and Rob was expected to win this event based on past data, and they all were right on the nose with those points standing. So Rob, actually, the one that you see on my thumbnail for this video, had a very, very fast time. I think 11 plus seconds on the car walk. Did a great job there. Then you have Gregor Zamanski, who was expected to get 1 point based on the data, and also because of the fact he's been at a strongman for a few years now, comes through really strong. 5 points for Gregor Zamanski, so doing 4 points better than expected. And then that has to leave a gap for someone else to do more poorly than expected, and that was Mika Toro, who the data had suggested 4 points. Actually comes away with 1 point, Mika Toro. Then you have car walk for Group 4. So in Group 4, Martins Lici is expected to win the car walk in his group. Actually came in second, so pretty close there. And same thing with Maxime Boudreau, Pavlo Kordiaka, Gavin Bilton, each performing about 1 spot better than what the data had suggested. Maxime gets 3 points instead of 2. Pavlo wins it instead of getting 5 points. So really trying to leapfrog himself back into a better position here. And then Gavin Bilton continues to perform very, very well at this World's Strongest Man. I think, you know, not to sound negative or anything, but to the surprise of a lot of us, and really rooting hard for him and glad to see Gav doing this kind of performance. 4 points on the car walk for him. Shane Flowers, with the foot injury, unfortunately ends up having to withdraw from World's Strongest Man, and we find out why. They did an interview with Shane, and apparently on the loading medley, he dropped the anvil on his foot. So you can imagine what kind of pain that is. He tried to push through. He still gave a great performance in the deadlift ladder, but enough is enough. The medical staff said, you know, you got to stop, and he decided, I'm gonna cut my losses and come back stronger next time. Nesman Ambeskovich, predicted to do 4 points in the car walk, only 2 for him, continues to have sort of a less than stellar performance at this year's World's Strongest Man. So we'll see what happens in other shows going forward for him. And then we have car walk for Group 5. So Luke Stoltman ends up in second place, just as the data had suggested in the car walk. Athor Melstead does 1 point better than the data had expected, 4 points instead of 3. Coco Korabuf does 3 points instead of 1. And so he ends up doing considerably better than what the data had suggested. Kelvin de Reuter, starting to fall apart a bit. I don't mean to be harsh, but he started off really strong at World's Strongest Man. And in the latter sort of events, just having some issues. I think the deadlift wasn't great for him either. And so expected to do really well here based on the data. Comes away with 2 points for him. And then Evan Singleton, who we had talked about yesterday, being sort of removed from World's Strongest Man based on the anaphylactic shock that he talked about on his Instagram, making his breathing almost impossible on the loading medley, was actually cleared by medical staff to come back. And so he did come back, performed in the car walk, and won the car walk in his group. And look at this time, 9.86 seconds, which I didn't even think was possible. An unbelievably fast time, and really trying hard to try to position himself back into the last man standing stone off, given that he wasn't there to do the deadlift. So obviously 0 points there. So he's trying his best to get himself back into position in an incredible, incredible time there. And then Kim Uyadik comes away with 1 point, so slightly underperforms what the data would have suggested for him on the car walk. So that's how the car walk went on day 2. Let's have a look at the log press for reps, moving back up to Group 1 as we navigate our way back up here. So on log press for reps, Tom Stoltman wins again. So for these first 4 events, he's won everything. It's unbelievable. I think everybody, including this research data, expected Tom to be at or near the top in all of these events, except maybe the wrecking ball hold. And even that he might outperform, because it's not a Hercules hold. It's different. So we'll see what happens there. But Tom's just winning everything. He's won the first 4 events. So doing very well there. Kevin Ferris also outperforms the data by 1 placing. He gets 5 points instead of 4 on the log press for reps, 7 reps for him. 6 reps for Gabriel Pena, who continues to perform very well there. So he comes away with 4 points instead of the predicted 2. So far outperforms the data there. 4 reps on the log press for Ivar. So he, just like the car walk, underperformed substantially on what the data had suggested. So maybe some adjustments needed in the algorithm on how SCL translates over to World's Strongest Man and so forth. And Andy Black predicted to get 3 points here. Ends up with 0 on the log press, unfortunately. So no reps for him and no reps for Manuel Angulo, which I expected, right? Manuel did poorly in the log. Also at OSG, it's not one of his better events, unfortunately. And so that's kind of how that played out for Group 1. Moving on to Group 2, we have Mitchell Hooper, who everybody kind of got on the bandwagon and is expecting him to win everything now. And he kind of tempered everybody and said, I know I'm not elite of the elite in log. I'm very good in log, but don't expect me to win it. And kind of played out just like that. He's very near the top, but didn't win it, right? So I predicted 5 points for him. He ended up splitting 4.5 points with Brian Shaw, and that was done by completing 7 reps for each of them. So in that kind of heat, that kind of weather, I think it's really great. Gabriel Pena has talked a lot about the effect of the heat in Sacramento. 6 points predicted for Bobby Thompson on this event. He's the American Log Press Max record holder. This is for reps, yes, but he did end up winning his group there, so right on target for Bobby. Brian Shaw expected for 3 points. Again, he splits 4.5, so outperforms the data there. Gabriel Pena very slightly below the data, so you could say he was right on target with the data. When you're splitting points, it kind of can throw off. I didn't predict any split points, so for all intents and purposes, that's the same. Gabriel talked about on his IG Live where this knee injury sort of bled over the one we talked about in the car walk that was re-aggravated, and he said he was going into the log press hoping for 1 rep. He just didn't want to zero it. He wanted to get the points for 1 rep, and that's what he was able to do. He tried a second rep, and it just didn't seem like it was going to go, and he stopped. He didn't want to cause himself long-term injury for his entire career just to sort of try to advance a little further in one show, and can't blame him for that. Gabe, a true warrior, but a true intellect as well. Mark Felix with 1.5 points as well, so he does 1 rep just like Gabe Pena did, as you can see here. And again, kind of pretty much right on target with the data. And then Konstantin Janasha underperforms the data very slightly, expecting him to get 4 points. He ends up with 3 points, and that was done with 5 reps on the log press for reps by Konstantin. Moving on to Group 3, log press for reps. We had expected Alexei Novikov to win this based on the data, and he does end up splitting the win here with Trey Mitchell. So each of them do an unbelievable 9 reps. And as you'll see later, that isn't even the highest total in all the groups. But they both do 9 reps, split 5.5 points. So kind of Alexei right on target with the data. Trey, I would say, substantially outperforming the research data. So good job, Trey. Adam Bishop, same thing. So Adam Bishop was predicted to get 2 points based on the research data. He ends up with 4 points here, doing 7 reps on the log press. Then we have Rob Kearney, who we had expected to get 5 points. He ends up with 3. Rob does 6 reps. So only 3 points, but 6 reps is pretty respectable. So, can only say good things about Rob. Gregor Zamanski with 2 points, and that was done with 3 reps on the log press. And then 2 reps from Mika Toro, good enough for 1 point for him. We move on down to Group 4, and we want to get this done quickly so you can go start watching the results rolling in, hopefully pretty shortly. So we have Martins Litsius, who I'd expected to get 4 points, pretty much right on target, doing slightly better with 4.5, which he ends up splitting with Pavlo Kordiaka, who I expected to get 5 points. So kind of splitting the difference on the data. Those two end up sharing 9 reps, but they are outdone by an incredible 10 reps done by Maxime Boudreau, who ends up winning the log press for reps for Group 4. You then have 3 points going to Gavin Bilton, expected to do 2 points, so he did a little bit better there. And then same thing for Nesman Ambeskovich, who finally has a little bit better performance than expected, maybe trying to turn it around. Still only gets 2 points out of the deal with his 2 reps that he's done, but at least outperforming the data a bit, trying to leave a little bit of a positive impression, whatever he can here, right? And as we said, Shane Flowers at this point out of the competition. That group, for the most part, except for Pavlo, who very slightly underperformed. Again, you can call that a wash. They pretty much performed right on target with the data or above it. And then lastly, Group 5, same thing, except for Evan Singleton. Everybody else either right on target or outperforming the data. We expected Luke Stoltman, of course, to win this event, and of course he did win the event. He is the second person in all of the competitors to do 10 reps, he and Maxime Boudreau. So it's actually a really big compliment to Maxime that he's log pressing what the best log presser in the world is log pressing. So amazing. But 10 reps for Luke Stoltman. Then we have 5 points going to Athor Melstead, where we had expected 4 points. So he outperforms there and does an unbelievable 8 reps. That's a great total. Coco Korabouf does 4 points instead of the expected 3, so he outperforms there. And he also 7 reps, does a very respectable total there. And it's kind of a battle between Athor and Jean-Steven for the stone off at this point, right? It doesn't look like Kelvin's going to be able to crawl his way back in or claw his way back in. Kelvin performs, very slightly better than expected. Thought he would come in last year. He ends up splitting 1.5 points with Evan Singleton here, both of them doing 1 rep. So Evan, after performing so exceptionally, unbelievably well on the car walk, only manages 1 rep on the log press. So I don't know the circumstances, if there was a heat situation or an injury situation, or, it's just straight up that's all he could do. I don't have any further details than that at this point. But 1 rep for Evan, and the conspicuous thing there, or the important thing there, is that means he's out of the finals. He's not going to be able to get to the stone off, because Evan would have to win the stone off, which would give him 6 points there. And if Evan won the stone off for 6 points, he would then end up with a total of, let's see, he has 9.5 points now, so he would end up at 15.5 points. Jean-Steven has 15 points now, so even if he comes last, he would have 1 point, giving him a total of 16, which would be half a point more than Evan. So it means Evan can't get to the stone off unless there's some weird situation where you try to lift the wrecking ball and it totally slips out of your hands and you zero it. I think that's not possible. But if it's possible to zero it, then Evan has the slightest of margins that he's still in it, but I don't think that's a thing. So unfortunately, Evan, after trying so hard to come back, seems like it's the end of this year's World's Strongest Man for him. And then you have Kim Uyadik, who does a little bit better than what the data had predicted. For 2 points, he ends up with 3 points in the log press for reps. A very respectable 6 reps for him. So that's how the car walk and the log press for reps went on day 2 at World's Strongest Man. Those are all the results of all the gentlemen, and whether they, performed at expectation, below, or above expectation. So hopefully you found all this detail interesting, and we'll catch up again later after the day is over. Hopefully I still have my voice, and I do appreciate you swinging by. And of course, until next time, as always, ciao, homie.